And brothers and sisters, do not fear the day of new beginnings, for this word will ignite your spirit and set you free. Do not allow the beauty of the current good that we cherish and hold dearly to keep us from pioneering. We are called to impact this world that we live in.
All right, you need to flap your arms really fast, and you absolutely have to believe you're gonna fly. Otherwise, the magic wings won't work, folks. All right, Aunt Flora, fly! Try again, Aunt Flora. This time, we need more belief and no fear.
Line up, everybody. Only 10 cents to fly off the church roof with Hippo and Samuel's magic wings. One day, we will all fly. But today, only the brave.
The madness of the pastor's boys.
One day we will all fly. What a riot!
This is Sarah Scott on WWJ.
Tell me, Hippo, where did your passion for innovation start?
Well, Sarah, we were lucky enough to grow up in an intellectual, stimulating environment where there was room for creativity and innovation.
And was that your mother's doing or your father's?
Both. The father preached thinking out of the box to the church every Sunday. Initially, it really pushed their buttons, but later, they got used to it.
And Mama, well, she just let us be. Sam and I would come home at night, our hands black with oil from trying to make some bicycle work again or repairing a cartwheel. Our shirts more stained than you can imagine. Mama would just point to the tub and Sam would put the water on to boil.
Fascinating story, Hippo. We're going to listen to a quick word from our sponsor. This is Sarah Scott.
Did your father also work in the workshop?
Not anymore, after his accident. But he loved what we were doing.
I wish you could hear Hippo tell the story.
Yeah, he'd be real proud. I'm sure Mama's listening, even though she is half deaf.
Half deaf or not, she can hear everything.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Sarah Scott on WWJ, and if you just tuned in, we have Hippolyte Miller with us in studio, a name that would be familiar with most of our listeners.
As you all know, Hippo and his brother Samuel are responsible for revolutionizing our world with air travel. And in the modern era, even commercial flights carrying paying passengers have become commonplace. Hippo, could you ever imagine where we would be today?
Well, yes and no. If you can't dream it, you can't make it happen. I guess there are countless times you ask yourself the question, what in the hell are we doing? And for what reason?
I told the boys they were crazy, but they wouldn't stop. And I'll tell you something, Abby, wait a minute. You know, I was pleased they didn't stop because I somehow felt that they could do it. Until Sammy's crash.
Mama struggled, supporting us after the crash.
I would have totally have forbidden you to go on, God help me.
I would totally have ignored you. Nothing was going to stop us.
Believing that one day we will actually fly.
Tell us about Samuel's crash.
Can we take a few steps back, maybe? It's important to understand the burning ambition that used to drive us endlessly. This wasn't another bike or grindstone or tractor engine. The workshop was our playground as kids, and then it became our way of living. Amazing what people managed to break or damage. And then later, it became the breeding ground for our ideas to incubate. We had to figure out how we could be lighter than air. Our first idea was a type of bicycle plane.
Bicycle plane?
It was ridiculous, sweetie. It was like a film, playing out before your eyes, only with Daddy and Uncle Hippo in the lead roles. Grandma sewed together some old sheets for a sail.
Well, now that you think back, you ask why the hell try and build a plane from a bicycle? I don't know. Bikes by reference. That's where you start, with what you know.
And they would set off from the top of the hill with Sammy in the saddle. You know, he was lighter. And Hippo running behind, supposedly for more speed.
But it didn't work. Sam and the bike were too heavy.
Uncle Hippo wasn't pushing hard enough.
We needed to lighten the structure. Mama replaced the sheets with muslin. The sails were meant to help us lift off the ground, but instead, when they bulged, it slowed us down. The bike wheels never left the ground.
And it was blood and bruises. And one day I even told them, this thing is going to be the death of you. And that will be the death of me.
My mother's words brought me to the greatest conflict in my life. I think it's going to be the death of you. That'll be the death of me. What if our passion for innovation led to the death of my little brother? Nothing could ever merit that cost. And Sam, he was fearless. Fearless. Fearless.
Woo-hoo! You hear that? Sam was fearless. You want a box, baby? I ain't afraid of you, baby, because my big brother says that I'm fearless.
Oh, you better watch out now, Mr. Sam Miller, or you might just rediscover fear messing with Rose Miller.
I apologize. I changed my mind.
We were always together. We'd always been building things, always a twosome. Anything and everything. Shacks, go-karts, toys.
Sam was always older than his age. He could swim.
Their skillful, inventive hands created a new world. It was sometimes crazy, but it was always useful.
That was when we started out.
But then, at times, I would need to be alone. I would go sit on the edge of the cliff, and the river would be winding its way 60 feet below.
Your happy place.
Yeah. My thinking place, rather.
It tore him apart. His love for me on one side, and his drive to innovate on the other. It was more than a drive, it was like a calling. And Papa's words echoing in his soul. Do not fear the day of new beginnings.
For this word will ignite your spirit and set you free.
Do not allow the beauty of the current good, which you cherish and hold dear, to keep you from pioneering. But when the good that you cherish and hold is your brother, your soulmate, how do you pioneer at that cost? And Mama always calling from the other side, this thing will be the death of you.
And that will be the death of me.
But it was on this cliff that my brother had his revelation.
And then one moment, I spotted a leaf falling right in front of my eyes, twirling. A leaf weighted down at one end by a slight bulge around which the leaf itself, the wing, turns. And as it fell, it made a movement in the air that was both graceful and elliptical. A downward, spiral-like revolution, as if orderly, almost mechanical. And then I knew we had to do this, whatever the cost, and I knew how to do it. Sammy, I've got it! We have to forget about the bicycle. It's not the right structure. Wheels are not a bad idea to gain speed, but the shape of our device, it doesn't fit. It doesn't cut through the air. It's not aerodynamic enough. We need something more aerodynamic. But just look at it, and it needs more lift. We need to revise the shape of the wings.
This is amazing, and you really think that it could work, that we'll be able to take off?
Well, we have to try.
And what's that thing there at the end?
A propeller. You knew that.
I was so excited for them, but also worried. They were in that workshop day and night. It was like a construction site. It just didn't stop. And they flew their thing over and over and over and over, and it failed. They'd sleep, and then their willpower took over. I just didn't know how much more they could take.
Shall I switch the radio box on again?
Yes, dear.
We explained to Mama that these were not inconclusive trials, that we were much further ahead than we were
2 years before. Mama watched the piles of metal and aborted projects rust away in the yard, never said a word. She knew that sharing her own fears was not gonna help.
My father was more optimistic, though. When you're passionate about progress and you're faced with traditionalists every Sunday, well, one needs to be optimistic.
Progress. Not everybody likes that word.
It has an intoxicating ring to it. Progress.
And at that point, progress was also taking place on the other side of the world.
Yeah. My father would receive illustrated magazines about the news of the world. One day, Sam was paging through one, and there it was. It spoke of mad inventors in a faraway place on another continent, stubbornly trying to fly.
How random. The world is so small.
So we applied a lot that we learned from these magazines and articles. Essentially, nobody had yet got it right, and our invention, as we called it, needed to be first. We designed a biplane glider. The sheets were now stretched taut with a small cockpit that was supported by 2 wheels on either side, and it continued to evolve through countless trials. The townsfolk thought it was a grand joke and paid good money to see us fail every time. Later, we increased the wingspan, added a stabilizer, and rudder. That was quite decisive. And it was always Sam that took the cockpit because, he was the lightest.
Are we getting to the crash now? Time for a word from our sponsor.
They were going up a few feet and then crashing down.
Oh, for crying out loud.
And I said, Sammy, be careful. And he said, Mother, we're succeeding. It's no longer a failure. It's not yet a success. But every flight, every test is a success because we learn a little more each time. And then came the crash.
We are right back here on WWJ with Hippo Miller. And it's time for the crash, right?
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about the crash. So Sam got up early one morning because he wanted to try something we'd never tried before, and involved increasing the initial speed. One of the key things was increasing the initial momentum, but increasing the momentum made it very dangerous. And I had told him not to do it.
There was no other way. We had to try. It had to be me. Nothing beats a real test. It was complicated, doing everything alone. I got the machine started and pushed it out.
But not in the direction of the east side of the hill, as usual. No, this time he headed from the west side, much steeper. On this western side, the meadow had a much steeper gradient, and at the far end, the terrain came to a sudden sheer halt, above the river, flowing far below. Very far.
According to our calculations, I would gain sufficient speed before reaching the cliff, which would effectively replace rear propulsion, for which we had not yet found a solution. And the wing would help lift me into the air once I was above the void. It would work. It had to work.
It could have worked, if he wasn't alone. He stupidly pushed the biplane to the steepest slope, and then tied a rope around his waist, as if he would be enough to stop the biplane.
Oh my gosh.
The rest is history. He started pushing the plane down the slope. It moved at a hell of a speed, much faster than he expected. He managed to stay on his feet the first few meters, but stumbled. My little brother was dragged along by an unstoppable machine heading straight for disaster.
This is all so surreal. Listening to your story, it's hard to believe that he's actually alive and well today, probably listening to this broadcast.
He tried to untie the rope, but it was impossible at that speed. And he also said in his last moments, he thought of his family, and of Hippo in particular, and their dream vanishing.
When Hippo woke up and saw I wasn't in bed, and I was not in the workshop, he knew.
Sammy! Sammy! Sammy!
Hippo threw himself down the banks, definitely ruining his trousers, which would upset Mama, but she would probably be more upset with me dead, so fair exchange.
The cockpit was overturned against the riverbed. Sam's head was miraculously resting on the edge, but the water was rising. Sammy! Sammy!
I could hear his voice, but seemingly unconscious, I couldn't move. He dived under the water to get me out, but the damn rope was holding me.
The water was ice cold. My hands were frozen. I couldn't move my fingers, but this was his only chance, and eventually, I got it loose. Sam! We're gonna get out of this, but I need you to help me. If you can hear me, breathe in, as deep as you can. We're gonna have to go under. I'll swim for both of us, but I need you to stay under for a bit. Do you hear me? We're gonna make it. The distance between the biplane and the shore was very short, but it seemed infinite.
And he lived?
And he lived, but the dream nearly died.
Oh no, we need to hear it all. But let's just take a short break.
You know, you never talk about the crash, honey. Is this difficult, listening to all of this?
It's not easy. A random shepherd helped us get out of there. That night, I was lying in bed. Everyone thought I was asleep, but to this day, Hippo doesn't know that I heard the conversation.
It's done. It's the end of our invention.
Is this the right time to make such a decision?
Samuel nearly died, Dad. He almost died. And you nearly lost your son. I will not pay this price to pioneer anything. It's done. I'm the one who put the idea of flying into his head. What a fool I was.
Hippo, this dream isn't yours. It belongs to both of you for a long time. Sam as much as you. It's a decision you'll make together. Don't you agree?
There was never a way that I would let it go. We were this close.
I knew if I didn't do it with him, he would do it alone again, and that nearly killed him.
And the rest has been written in the clouds. What you have inspired and will continue to inspire in this new industry will forever be engraved in the most glorious pages of human history.
That was 1902. In 1904, we flew. 3 years before my father passed. And now, the Magic Wing indeed celebrates 20 years. A lot happened those first 3 years, and a lot has happened over 20 years. We've been through a war, and I know Papa is sitting up there watching, very proud. If it were not for him, we would never have pursued this dream to the end. We may not even have started. And if it were not for Mama's support, we would also not have got here. Pioneering is a team effort. Now, look where we are. A year after our first flight, the American Scientific Magazine that initially labeled our work as a hoax now celebrated our achievement as a triumph. Last year, Sam and I revisited our home, and we sat on that cliff where I always did my thinking. That bird, too, is heavier than air. And yet, we did it, you son of a gun. We did it.